Things are done fast in Southern California. Ordinary houses there are usually built in a month's time. Under Teal's impassioned heckling, the tesseract house climbed dizzily skyward in days rather than weeks, and its cross-shaped second story came jutting out of the four corners of the world. He had some trouble at first with the inspectors over these four projecting rooms, but by using strong girders and folding money, he had been able to convince them of the soundness of his arrangements. Teal drove up in front of the Bailey residence the morning after their return to town. He improvised on his two-tone horn. Bailey stuck his head out the door and said, "Why don't you use the bell?" "Too slow," answered Teal cheerfully. "I'm a man of action. Is Mrs. Bailey ready?" "Ah, you there, Mrs. Bailey. Welcome home, welcome home. Jump in. We've got a surprise for you." So they travel there. Just around this bend, there's a sign now. A large arrow sign, of the sort favored by real estate promoters, proclaimed in letters that were large and bright, even for Southern California, "The House of the Future, colossal, amazing, revolutionary. See how your grandchildren will live. Q. Teal, architect." "Of course, that sign will be taken down," he added hastily, noting her expression, "as soon as you guys take possession." He slewed around the corner and brought the car to a squelching halt in front of the House of the Future. Voila! He watched their faces for response. Bailey stared unbelievably, Mrs. Bailey in open dislike. They saw a simple cubical mass possessing doors and windows, but no other architectural features, save that it was decorated in intricate mathematical designs. "Teal," Bailey asked slowly, "what have you been up to?" Teal turned from their faces to the house. Gone was the crazy tower with its jutting second-story rooms. No trace remained of the 7 rooms above ground floor level. Nothing remained but the single room that rested on the foundations. "Great jumping cats," he yelled. "I've been robbed." He broke into a run, but it did him no good. Front or back, the story was the same. The other 7 rooms had disappeared, vanished completely. Bailey caught up with him and took his arm. "Explain yourself. What is this about being robbed? How come you built anything like this? It's not according to our agreement." But I didn't. I built what we had planned, an 8-room house in the form of a developed tesseract. I've been sabotaged. That's what it is. Jealousy. The other architects in town didn't dare let me finish this job. They knew they'd be washed up if I did. "Well, when were you here last?" "Yesterday afternoon." "Everything all right then?" "Yes, the gardeners were just finishing up." Bailey glanced around at the faultlessly manicured landscaping. "I don't see how 7 rooms could have been dismantled and carted away in a single night, especially without wrecking this garden." Teal looked around too. "Yeah, it doesn't look like it. I don't understand." Miss Bailey joined them. Well, am I to be left to amuse myself? We might as well look it over as long as we're here, though I'm warning you, Homer, I'm not going to like it." "We might as well," agreed Teal, and drew a key from his pocket, which let them into the front door. "We may pick up some clues, I suppose." The entrance hall was in perfect order. The sliding screens that separated it from the garage space were back, permitting them to see the entire compartment. "This looks all right," observed Bailey. "Let's go up on the roof and try to figure out what happened. Where's the staircase? Have they stolen that too?" "Oh no," Teal denied. "Look." He pressed a button below, the light switch. A panel in the ceiling fell away. A graceful flight of stairs swung noiselessly down. Its strength members were the frosty silver of beryllium, its treads and risers transparent plastic. Teal wriggled like a boy who had successfully performed a card trick, while Miss Bailey thawed perceptibly. It was beautiful. "Pretty slick," Bailey admitted. "It doesn't seem to go anyplace." "Oh, that," Teal followed his gaze. "The cover lifts up as you approach the top. Open stairwells are anachronisms. Come on." As predicted, the lid on the staircase got out of their way as they climbed the flight, and permitted them to debouch on the top, but not as they had expected on the roof of the single room. They found themselves standing in the middle of the 5 rooms, which constituted the second floor of the original structure. For the first time on record, Teal had nothing to say. Bailey echoed him, chewing on his cigar. Everything was in perfect order. Before them, through open doorway and translucent partition, lay the kitchen, a chef's dream of up-to-minute domestic engineering, money metal, continuous counter space, concealed lighting, functional arrangements. On the left, the formal yet gracious and hospitable dining room awaited guests, its furniture and parade ground alignment. Teal knew before he turned his head that the drawing room and lounge would be found in equally substantial and impossible existence. "Well, I must admit, this is charming," Mrs. Bailey approved, "and the kitchen is just too quaint for words, though I would never have guessed from the exterior that this house had so much room upstairs. Of course, some changes will have to be made. That secretary now, if we moved it over here and put the settle over there and—" "Stow it, Matilda," Bailey cut in. "What do you think made it, Teal?" "Why, Homer Bailey, that very idea—" "Stow it, I said. Well, Teal?" The architect shuffled his rambling body. "I'm afraid to say. Let's go on up." "How?" "Like this." He touched another button. A mate in deeper colors to the ferry bridge that had led them up below offered them access to the next floor. They climbed it. Miss Bailey was in the rear and found themselves in the master bedroom. Its shades were drawn, as had been those on the level below, but the mellow lighting came on automatically. Teal at once activated the switch, which controlled still another flight of stairs, and they hurried up into the top-floor study. "Look, Teal," suggested Bailey when he had caught his breath. "Can we get to the roof above this room? Then we could really look around." "Sure, it's an observatory platform." They climbed the fourth flight of stairs, but when the cover at the top lifted, they found themselves not on the roof, but standing in the ground floor room where they had entered the house. Mr. Bailey turned a sickly gray. "Angels in heaven," he cried. "This place is haunted. We're getting out of here." Grabbing his wife, he threw open the front door and plunged out. Teal, too, was preoccupied, but much too much so to bother with their departure. There was an answer to all this, an answer he did not believe, but he was forced to break out, considering it because of hoarse shouts coming from somewhere above him. He lowered the staircase and rushed upstairs. Bailey was in the central room, leaning over Mrs. Bailey, who had fainted. Teal took in the situation, went to the bar, built into the lounge, and poured 3 fingers of brandy. When he returned, he handed to Bailey. "Here, this'll fix her up." Bailey drank it. "That was from Mrs. Bailey." "Don't quibble," snapped Bailey. "Get her another." Teal took the precaution of taking one himself before returning with a dose earmarked for his client's wife. He found her just opening her eyes. "Here, Mrs. Bailey, this will make you feel better." "Oh, I never touched the spirits," she protested, but then gulped it. "Now tell me what happened," suggested Teal. "I thought you two had left." "But we did. We walked out the front door and found ourselves up here, in the lounge." "The hell you say?" Wait a minute." Teal went into the lounge. There he found that the big view window at the end of the room was open. He peered cautiously through it. He stared, not out at the California countryside, but into the ground floor room, or a reasonable facsimile thereof. He said nothing. He came back into the central room and seated himself opposite Bailey in a deep low chair. "Homer, do you know what has happened?" "No, I don't. But if I don't find out pretty soon, something is going to happen, and pretty drastic, too." "What the hell is he talking about, Homer?" "Wait, Matilda. Teal, you're ridiculous." "Homer, this is a vindication of my theories. This house is a real tesseract."